Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Rotation. Listen, 2 weeks in a row, two hosts. We are literally rotating over here, baby. I am Ashley, aka MiDNiTE, joined by IKON. What's good, IKON?
What's going on? I'm excited to be back. I was just talking to producer Shannon. Shout out producer Shannon. But we were talking before the show started. It feels like it's been like forever, like 3 or 4 weeks since I've gotten to talk COD. We did that one podcast, but the last major, I was on vacation. So finally, hopefully we're back, get to talk some Call of Duty, and perfect timing right before champs here.
Let's go. Yeah, absolutely. It's good. It feels like a weird break. Like the CDL schedule this year has been pretty aggressive, I'd say, especially compared to last year. Like last year, you'd have 2, 3, sometimes 4 week breaks between your team playing, which kind of like had more of the like more weight to the matches. A little bit of like, oh, like you have to wait this long to see so and so play so and so. Now the teams are playing so often. But with that being said, now there's been like a longer break. I think because of the 4th of July weekend, they pushed the New York Subliners home series, which is this upcoming weekend. And there was like a 2 week break instead of a 1 week break between stages. So yeah, and then plus like you said, like you were on you were on vacation last week? Yeah, you were
Yep.
on or no, something with your internet. I can't remember. You were everywhere, but on the rotation. So
I
it's
know.
great to have you back. And we miss Kingdom. Kingdom couldn't make it today, but he will be back next week, I'm assuming. I forget what he had to do, but he had some very important business, which is crazy because this podcast is very important business. So it was important if he had something else going on. So shout out Kingdom. I'm excited to talk COD today though. I mean it's a rough time of the season, right? But that don't mean the rotation stops, man. There's still so much going on. I mean, obviously stage 5 is about to start this week, but you have a lot of like external discussions going on. You've got players slinging mud back and forth on Twitter all day. It must just be that time of year. Everyone's bored and talking shit.
Yep.
And then you've got a big broader discussion right now going on about CDL Pro burnout and stuff like that. So we'll definitely get to that. But just wanted, I guess, like check in with you, IKON. Like during this break between stage 4 and 5, I know a lot of the teams were taking a break, so I'm not sure there's been a lot of like development of whether it's rosters or scrims. But I just wanted to know, like, how do you view the CDL landscape and the landscape like going into stage 5? Like, what are you most looking forward to, and if there's anything you've noticed recently?
Yeah, I think if you looked at where we're at overall, normally going into the last major, this is when you'd start to think like, okay, we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. Like you really have to perform in this stage 5 and throughout the stage 5 major, or else you're not going to make champs. And I think part of this little bit of a lull that we're in right here is simply because like the top 8 teams are kind of already decided. Like if there were say like the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, like if those 4 squads were all like 10 or 20 points apart, I feel like the news and the storylines and what you're talking about heading into this major would be so much different. But if you look at standings, how it is right now, the 8th place seed, which is Florida, is at 170, and the 9th place seed LAG is at 100. So if they've only gotten 100 points throughout 4 stages, probably not going to make up 70 points in a matter of one stage and able to get into champs. So I think that's part of it. Like if you're looking for storylines, the only real storylines is like what's going to happen with 6, 7, and 8 right now. If you're Minnesota, I think that we feel pretty comfortable having a 20-point lead. Now, with that said, our group is pretty tough. I'm sure we could talk about that and whatnot. And then the other storyline would be Dallas, Toronto, and New York. Those 3 squads that are in 2, 3, and 4, all of those squads are separated by 5 points. So that's probably where you're going to get the most shuffling. So I just think overall, like there's a lot of news going down, like with rosters and back and forth, and how some of those roster changes are panning out. Like I just heard recently that LAG is not really playing great as of late. Same with LA Thieves. Like both of those squads seem to be struggling despite the roster moves that they've made. LA Thieves bringing back John, and then Mental being subbed in for LAG. But again, that's like really all there is to go off of at this point in time. I just feel like in a normal season, this would be the time when, all right, let's buckle down. Let's really try to focus on like what's going to happen in that eighth spot, like going into the last stage of or the last week of a stage. That would be super important for where people are going to place. But right now, it's just like, all right, let's get through this stage 5 and see where everybody falls, at least the top 8 teams, where they're at for champs. And let's see what those matchups look like. So not a ton to talk about right now. It's just how are kind of like that 2, 3, 4, and then 6, 7, 8. How are those squads going to end up shaking out? And then let's get ready for champs.
Yeah, it would honestly be really crazy if like the battle for 2, 3, 4 right now and how close those points and positionings are on the standings. Imagine if that was applied to like 7, 8, 9, and you had truly like a fight to get into the quote unquote postseason.
Yeah.
I think the discrepancy in points between 8 and 9 and then 10 and 11, obviously, and 12, that just makes me wonder even more how people were saying all 12 teams should be at champs. I will not bring up this argument again because we all know how I feel, but I was just literally flabbergasted at the amount of people who were like, all 12 teams at champs, come on, like the good old times. Like, no, baby, this is a league. You want to upset at champs, you better earn that right. I think top 8 teams out of 12 is totally fair. So anyway, yeah, I mean, looking at it, I am a delusional purple Kool-Aid drinker, okay? I think that Chicago Optic could go on a skid and then Rokkr gets hot, you know? And then
Possible.
all of a sudden, you're clawing back into this thing. Dude, okay, I don't have any inside knowledge. I've actually purposefully not asked Jake and Saint about this because I would be too tempted to talk about it on the podcast. But I was wondering, I know a lot of teams aren't streaming their scrims, but there's talk right now I don't know if it's like just pros, like hearsay talking about it on Twitter, but the big thing that's allegedly, I'm not confirming this, I do work for Rokkr, but I do not know. Allegedly, Priesta and Attach have swapped roles. So obviously Attach, the second sub next to Standy, Priesta started the year as a sub, moved into Major Maniac slot, Major Maniac moved into Accuracy slot, Priesta, it's been a rotating musical chairs of roles. And now it appears, or it sounds like, based on the Twitter feed, that Attach is running an AR more often than not, and Priest is running a sub more often than not. So, like, do you think that helps this team, Icon? Like, does that raise the Minnesota Rokkr ceiling, the roof, if you will? Or is it just, it's a lateral move? I'd love to know your thoughts.
This is super tough. Because when I heard this, I wasn't quite sure what to think. What I will say is that when Minnesota brought in Standy, I feel like obviously that gave them the jump that they needed to be like somewhere in the middle of the pack. But I think what we've seen since then is that obviously our floor is higher, right? We're beating all of those squads that we should be beating, the LAGs, the Paris, like those squads. When it comes to group play, we're handling those squads that are in the bottom of the group. But where we're struggling is contending with those teams that are in the spots above us in the group. So like right now we have Dallas and we have Toronto above us. We're kind of right there with Florida right in the middle of our group, and then LAG and Seattle's in the bottom. So when we're looking at this overall, it seems like if we want to make winners, then we'll beat LAG, Seattle, Florida, and we'll make our way into winners bracket. And that's kind of what we've seen throughout a couple stages so far this year. Problem is that, sure, if we want to make winners, most of the time we're taking care of those squads that we need to beat, but we haven't been able to, as of late, beat those squads that are above us, like the Dallases, the Atlantas, the Optics of the world. So if you're sitting there, you're already in a spot where you're basically the 6th seed, right? I mean, unless you go like 0-5 in the group and get first rounded, then maybe things could switch up a little bit. But at worst case scenario, you're going to be at champs. So maybe this is a point in time where in the stage you could say, Attach, I think we could say throughout like the first 2 or 3 stages was probably the most consistent player. I mean, match in, match out, stage in, stage out. He was just playing super consistent, just doing what Attach has done throughout his entire career. And then I think as of late, we've gotten such a boost from Standy that I think Attach's production has settled just a tiny bit. And in those points in times, we've also seen Priestahh kind of take off. Like Priestahh's been playing super well the last stage or so. So I don't know. Like normally you would think back, okay, well, if Attach is going to run an AR, let's look back at a time period where he ran an AR and let's see how he did. But that just doesn't exist. Like he's never done it. Like there's nothing to look back and be like, okay, yeah, back in Black Ops 3 when he was here, he did fairly well. Like he just hasn't done it. So when you're looking at this overall, the only thing that I can think about is the fact that obviously our ceiling is higher than it was before, and the floor was higher also. But I just feel like this is an opportunity where Priest has been playing super well. Maybe if you put him alongside Standy and you let Attach just kind of roam the map with Major Maniac, maybe that could be a recipe for success. Again, we know where the floor's at. Let's try to see where the ceiling's at.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. At first, this really worried me, right? Because of the points you mentioned. Attach had a really, really solid start to the year. I think he was the best player on the team. Standy comes on, and then Standy brings a whole new set of pacing to the team. Obviously, you had Major Maniac coming back, which I think kind of improved that amalgamation of like, hey, you're not always just going to have an AR turret sitting somewhere on the map and everyone can guess where they're at. I think that versatility means a lot. I do worry, like, the only time we see Attach run an assault rifle in the past is, you know, for certain hills or certain breaks or certain, like, rotations on a map. And, you know, we've watched him use the Krig more and more lately. And every time we do during the costume, we're like, Attach is having a Krig out. What the heck? So,
and he's
like,
beaming.
he's beaming, right? So, like, maybe it's a comfortability thing, but it does worry me that, like, Attach had such a really solid start to the year. And then I don't want to say he regressed, but there's that consistency wasn't there anymore. He seems to be having a tougher time. So, like, I welcome a change for Dylan or Attach to, like, you know, get in his groove a little bit. You know, to be honest, Priestahh, I think, has looked really good on the AR. But I also think that Priestahh is such, like, he's a legitimate flex player. We'll find out if Attach is a legitimate flex player. I think we're about to find out. But Priestahh is a legitimate flex. Yes, he struggled at the beginning of the year on the sub, but he didn't have Standy by his side. With a cracked Standy helping him out, going in the hills together, I'm actually really looking forward to that. So, yes, it makes me nervous because change is scary, but this could end up raising the roof a little bit, or raising the ceiling, as you said. So I'm excited to see how it shapes out. And honestly, it just gives us a little bit of entertainment going into stage 5 here because, yeah, like you said, it's a little dry, man. Like the top 8's decided, you know, right now, what I think stage 5 is about the most, other than fans being back on land. That's so lit. We're going to talk about that. But, like, I think right now, especially for Rokkr and other teams in CDL, of course, going into champs, like, let's benchmark this. Like, it's the end of the year. Everyone knows how to play the game. Can you execute? How can you get a leg up over your opponent? And what does that look like? Yep. I do think, too, like, just real quick, I wanted to finish it by saying this switch with roles, I think it may have something to do with pacing. I mean, this is the first complaint we saw from a lot of fans and people on the timeline when this team formed was, oh, they're going to be so slow, like, pacing's going to be bad. And unfortunately, it kind of ended up being true. And so I'm wondering now, with Major Maniac playing a little more elusively as an AR, you got Priestahh. I mean, we've watched him beam with a sub, an AR, a freaking sword. I'm sure if he needed to, he could beam with that. And now we're going to see Attach maybe playing a little bit. We're going to have 2, like, faster ARs really now, which I think is where the league's going. So anyway, that's my rant. I think it's going to be really interesting to see, and we're going to benchmark this weekend and really, really find out. But what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say the only other difference here is, like, when you think back to when Priestahh ran an SMG earlier in the year, he was trying to be that, like, entry SMG, and that really isn't the spot for him. Like, Attach was being, you know, more of like the slower SMG, like playing map control, stuff like that. And since Standy is now in that position where, like, you have an Abizi, you have an Envoy, you have the Shotzi, right? Like, that's the role that Standy's fulfilling. So when Priestahh switches to an SMG, he doesn't have to fill that role anymore. And that's a role that he really wasn't comfortable in. Like, you would see him enter hills, and then, like, once you get a squad wipe or whatever, he wouldn't push forward and try to apply pressure. And I think the change here, I don't even really think it's going to make that big of a difference now that you kind of think about where everybody's at and the roles that they'll be playing, just because if you put a 74U or you put a Craig like back and forth, like a lot, like in a lot of situations, Attach and Priesta are doing the same thing, and they're playing the map the same way. It's just like before, when Priesta was trying to play like Standy, that's not something that he was comfortable doing. And now with this switch, he doesn't have to play that role. It's more of just like a support SMG instead of trying to be that entry route man SMG.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the Standy does a really good job in that role, and so hopefully, like, I mean, I thought Attach complemented Standy really well, but you know, as of late, it looked like there was some sort of, I'm not sure what the change was or what the difference was, or maybe there's some game update that just made the old workings of the team a little tougher. But I'll be excited to see, you know, Priesta and Standy, the new sub duo for Minnesota Rokkr. Let's freaking go. I guess, I mean, we obsess a lot about roles and stuff in CDL and on teams. And this year, more than any other year that I've ever witnessed competitive Call of Duty, weird hipster flex. I've been watching competitive COD since 2011. That's 10 years. If you're 10 years old right now watching this, first of all, where are your parents? Second of all, I've been watching competitive COD longer than you've been alive, all right? So I haven't seen this much, like usually the roles are pretty sticky, right? Like, and you do still have that, right? You have Clayster, he's the Maniar, Octane, Maniar, Crimson, like, but there's ways to evolve it, and that we're seeing that right now with the game and kind of how it's going. So I'm excited to see. You know what else I'm excited to see? Fans back on lands. Let's go. Stage 5 majors today got announced from CDL that there will be fans at the venue. Let me read the statement here. Santa Monica, July 6, 2021, super official graphic. They even got the site on the graphic. The following statement was released today by the Call of Duty League through its event team in response to questions about fans being in attendance during the upcoming Call of Duty League Major 5 event at Esports Stadium, Arlington, from July 29th through August 1st. Here's the statement. Are you guys ready? We back. We back, baby. Let's go. Not only is Lamb back, which we were very excited about for Stage 4, Simba's back, my cat's back for those of you watching on video, and fans are going to be back in the venue, and it's going to be at the same venue that they just had Stage 4 majors at, which is pretty awesome. I've been there. It's huge. It's made for events like this, and I'm super stoked to really kind of see, like, who turns up, right? Like, are there any Rokkr fans in Texas? Are there any Rokkr fans that are gonna go to Texas for this? I want to go. I don't know if I'll go. I might be doing, like, we're having some really cool, like, events here in Minnesota that are around our matches and what's happening. So there's ways, if you can't go to Esports Stadium in Arlington, Texas, if you can't go to the LAN, we're gonna be doing some really cool homegrown events here. But I'm just super excited, like, as a person who hates being in a really crowded room, I love this. Like, I miss this. Like, you know it's bad if I'm wishing that there's a bunch of people in one room screaming. I just can't wait for that energy to be back. I think it feeds a lot into the players.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely see that part of it. Now, I do think that with like a more franchised league, I was really excited to see all these guys play back on LAN in the last major. And I feel like what we've found out is that it really didn't matter all that much. Like, the teams that had been playing really well played really well. Like, other than Dallas, like, Dallas was struggling before Stage 4. They made the roster move to bring in Vivid, and then all of a sudden they just took off in the Stage 4 major, and they almost won it going to map 9 against Atlanta. But other than that, a lot of what we saw was kind of what we expected. Like, Atlanta played really well. Of course, with Asim and NYSL, obviously they kind of had a rough time of it, being that Asim couldn't be there, but now everything's all settled out with them. But with the incoming of LAN, I expected, like, Optic to play better. I expected some of the rookies to maybe not have such good performances like they did in the first 3 majors. And we really didn't get any of that. In fact, Standy absolutely went off. Like, Standy played like an absolute beast for Minnesota. So, yeah, I think now the only other part of that is that now once you reintroduce fans, obviously there's probably going to be a ton of Optic fans. So does that add another layer where you start to see the, you know, the chants and and that probably energizes Scump and Formal, and that does probably add a deeper layer to it. But I was a little bit surprised with the stage 4 LAN. I just figured that things would be different. Some of these vets would come out and play much better. We did see that with Crim and Dallas. But really what we saw was just the teams that were playing well before continued to play how they were playing, and not too much changed. It was surprising to see overall.
Yeah, it's an interesting point because I do, just to preface this, I do think LAN is by far the preferred competitive situation. I can't think of the word right now, but competitive situation. Yeah. I think that's where you're gonna find the true test of skills. But a lot is, and I've even guilty of this in the past. In our team last year, had such success on LAN, and then just online rolled around, and oh man, what a struggle. But you're absolutely right. I think other than maybe Seattle finally, when they're close to winning, they actually did win on LAN, right? And then you see then you see the other teams that they're just, they're so consistently doing the same things, right?
Yep.
Rokkr looked, granted, really good against NYSL without a seam, but they brought it, right? But you expect that on online play as well. And I think too, especially from last year to this year, I guess, is all of the, or I shouldn't say all of, a lot of the CDL teams did localize down in Dallas, Texas, for ping and server and internet advantages, right? So I think this is the most consistent online that we could have had this year. And now the fact that LANs are back, lit. I don't think there's going to be a massive change. I do wonder, there's so much made of, how are the rookies going to play on LAN? I think some people were really looking at Standy and how he was going to play. I was, obviously. I believed in the kid. I thought he's got no problem, and he didn't, right? But how are people going to play now when there's a crowd? When every time Scum gets a two-piece, there's an eruption. And, it's crazy, too, because it's Optic is technically the away team, but they're still, I think, going to have, the most fan presence at the event, especially now because they are literally based in Dallas. So this is a big event for them. I think it's a big event for everybody, though. I think fans being back in the seats is amazing. I'm ready for the hype. Nothing beats when there's a crazy search and destroy clutch or a crazy hardpoint comeback. The eruption, the energy from the crowd, it's nuts. I'm so stoked for them to be back. So I don't know. Definitely, don't want to assume, and this is not me, Minnesota Rokkr saying this, but I have to assume that if they're having fans for Stage 5 LAN, I have to assume that champs. I don't know, all right? Or maybe I do know. I don't know, okay? I don't know what they're going to do, but I would assume if Stage 5 has fans, then champs will too, and I think that is by far, the most important event to have fans at. I think that's going to be really exciting, so.
Yeah, 1,000%. I think
it
definitely alters, what happens throughout the course of the Stage 5 major and at champs. Unfortunately, now again, man, I don't know. I go back and forth in my mind how I feel about having those bottom 4 teams at champs, just because in a normal year, I get it. If everything was played on LAN, all the matches, everything was played on LAN, then obviously if there's this big of a discrepancy, then those teams weren't good enough. But the fact that everything was online and it's tough to get fully pumped up for those matches and whatnot, I don't know. It would be interesting to see with fans in the stands, what happens with some of those bottom 4 squads, because obviously those bottom 4 squads, you look at Seattle, obviously they're veteran laden. They've played in that environment before. So they'll still have a chance to show it at the Stage 5 major with fans and whatnot. But I do think that having stands there could have potentially altered the course of how some of these teams might finish.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'll fight you on it. I don't think. We did just say the results were pretty much the same.
Yeah.
I do agree though with online, that is, it's not the most consistent way to get your top 8. I could agree there. But also, you gotta, everybody's in the same situation. You don't think FaZe was screw it, dude, who cares? Bro, they don't even have to be winning these matches and they still are. Online and LAN, there's no, you know what I mean? I don't know. Yeah. I think I do want to see, I don't know what the whole format for champs is going to be. I don't know what the format next year is going to be, so I'll be interested to know that. But yeah, overall, I'm super stoked going into the conclusion of this whole season, bro, it's been kind of lit. I almost like don't want it to end, but I know like I'm just so hyped for like the culmination of this whole deal that I'm really excited. So one topic that I wanted to make sure we touched on, I think we've talked about it a little bit before, but like CDL player burnout is a very big conversation going on right now. You see a ton of players and coaches in the league talking about, hey, you got to make sure you don't burn yourself out. I mean, Coach Brian Saint's always been a very big proponent of this. Like, I don't want to read his Twitter or his tweet verbatim, but he basically was like, this over practicing and over grinding, could lead to you having a shorter career, could lead to injury. Like you got to make sure that you're working smarter and not harder, basically, which I definitely agree with. But I wanted to like, I guess maybe just pick your brain on it a little bit because you have the amateur side of things, and I don't know, like I'm not an amateur player. I don't really know like are they playing 14 hours a day to make sure they're winning the Challengers Cups? I don't know. I have noticed, as pointing back to earlier, I have been watching competitive Call of Duty for 10 years and following the scene really closely. I do know that there's been a lot made previously of, well, if you don't freaking grind, you're not going to win. And like, I get it. Like, that's a whole, like, I mean, the grinder mentality is not exclusive to Call of Duty, right? But it's been noticeable in years past with a team that maybe it's a combination of grinding and then also just being really smart about what they're doing has led to good results. And so I think a lot of teams and players see that and they're like, yo, I'm gonna outgrind the next guy. I'm playing eights. I'm playing not wagers. I'm playing, I'm scrimming 8 hours or 6 hours a day. I'm going nuts. I'm watching film. I'm cracked. I go to bed at 3. I wake up at 7. Let's freaking go, baby. I'm going to champs, right? But that's not sustainable. I think we all know that, right? And so maybe this attitude from going like to it's grind season all the time to, hey, I'm trying to like do this for longer than a year or two. So I guess I'd love to know your thoughts, Icon. I mean, I just kind of said like mine, like what I've noticed in the scene through the years. Obviously, I'm not a professional player. Who knows? Maybe I could have been. Just kidding. But like, so I've never like experienced that. But just from your experience following the scene and seeing what players are saying about this, I'd love to know your thoughts.
Yeah, I feel like there's a couple things that go into this. One, I feel like when there used to be MLG events, every 3 or 4 weeks, players had the opportunity for a week long or whatever to fly to Anaheim and play there. So that was obviously like a break in their schedule. And then they would go to MLG Miami, and then they would fly to Miami, and then they'd go to Columbus. And then, so sure, they were grinding just as much, but when it came time for events, they weren't just doing the same thing that they were doing the 3 weeks before that. They had, even though, sure, we're going to fly here, we're going to fly there, we're still going to grind, we're going to get on land, we're going to grind before our matches or whatever, but you just had that opportunity to switch up the scenery and just, it just felt like there was a break in the monotony of what you were doing every day. And I feel like with the last year and everything being online, like, okay, we're going to scrim for 10 hours a day or 8 hours a day or whatever. And then now when it's time to get a break from that and play in our actual competitions in these majors, well, now we have to just go do the same thing we were doing over and over again. And I feel like that's happened in a lot of areas of life too. Like, sure, these players are feeling it, but I feel like if you look across the landscape and how everybody's career is going right now, I think there's a lot of that basically everywhere. So I do think that with lands coming back, it'll provide those breaks that these guys need to go out and get back into it. And then the other part of that is that, for one, this is a game that just when it comes to like viewership and people playing it on Twitch, like if you go to Twitch, everybody's playing Warzone. Like there's Warzone tournaments all over the place. And every time you tune into one of those Warzone events, it's different. Like, there's 3v3s, there's 4v4s, there's duos, there's kill races. It seems like right now, with so many people playing Warzone, it's taking away viewership from just the classic competitive 4v4 league play-esque type competitions that we've seen throughout competitive COD for the last 10 years or so. And I think it's kind of providing a different avenue here. Like you're seeing players like Rated and pros from the past, Tommy, that have found success playing Warzone. And I think that's that's part of why, like, there was just a clip a day or two ago from Scump saying, you know what, my contract ends this year. I at least want to see what this next game looks like, this Call of Duty Vanguard, World War II remake, whatever they're going to be doing with the next Call of Duty. I want to see what that looks like before I go ahead and sign my contract. And I think that's where a lot of these pros are at. Now, there also could be that Scump and Formal played in the World Series of Warzone event, and they had some success, at least early on in that tournament as well. So I think that there's a ton of things that play into it. And when there is this other avenue and there's so much popularity around Warzone, I think it provides another avenue for these guys to go play at. And who knows? I mean, they'll probably always be around playing competitive Call of Duty. Like, I personally would be shocked if Scump doesn't play competitive COD next year, but it definitely adds to the conversation. Well, maybe he won't, because there is something else that he could be doing. Who knows?
Yeah, it's been super interesting to hear kind of, I mean, the conversation for both things, right? For burnout and like over prepping or over practicing, or you stretching yourself too thin so you can be better than the next person, which, I mean, like I said, it's across every industry or sport almost, is like, how are you training? Are you being intelligent about it? How, like, what are the small things that you can do to help get yourself ahead of the competition? I don't think about this, or I mean, there's definitely like repetition and hours in and mastery. That's a thing for sure. But when you're at this high of a level, I don't know if you play 2 more hours a day, if that really helps you that much. I think it might depend what you're doing, who you're playing against. There's even been a discussion lately about pros saying, oh, these people don't want it anymore. They're not playing eights like they used to. And then you have the other side of the coin where they're like, AIDS teaches you terrible tendencies. You're not even playing with your team and your exact. So like, there's a whole lot of, but dude, I wonder, do other esports have this much discussion all the time? I mean, I'm so COD focused on my Twitter and stuff, and everything happens on Twitter. And I follow like Valorant and a couple other esports as well, Rocket League, but I never see this much discourse about like the day-to-day lives of pros. I think it's just Call of Duty's fascinating, man. So,
it is.
So yeah, I definitely agree. Like, I don't know, man. On the burnout thing, I think these guys are young, right? So they can burn out, but I urge them to be careful and be smart. Be smart about how you're practicing. I think, I'm really proud of Coach Saint, and I'm not sure if Jake, aka Reppin, if he ended up saying anything about this on Twitter or not, but I thought he had a solid take, right? Like, you're just strictly hours, and what you're doing is not going to apply to success, right? It's all about practicing concisely, make sure you get a break, a reset, so that your players, they come back like ready to play. Now, on the second thing that you brought up about, Warzone just exploded in popularity over the last year and a half, whenever it came out, it's been insane to see, right? Like, it's pretty crazy to me. I mean, it feels like every single day now there's a 50K, 100K, 10K, 25K Warzone tournament happening. Listen, guilty as charged as well. We hold the tournaments. I think they're fun. They're awesome. We're going to do more in the future. I just think it's such an interesting space right now. And I've said this about the off season that's coming up, right? Like, after champs in a month or so, these pro players, best believe they're coming in to those Warzone tournaments and they're cleaning freaking house. I understand that Warzone is a different game. It's actually played on a completely different engine. But the skill ceiling that these professional players have is unmatched. I mean, that's why you see like your Tommies, your Rateds, or your Blasts, shout out Blast, these former pro players, that they apply themselves to Warzone. And yes, it's a different game. There's, a lot, it's just a lot different, like mechanically and just kind of game flow. But ultimately, like, if you're sick on the sticks, like, you're going to be nasty. And if you're a quick learner, sheesh, like, it's going to be crazy. So I'm interested to see, because I think it was Clayster. I think there was a clip of, I don't know if it was him on the flank or where this interview happened, but he was basically saying, like, sounded kind of worried almost, like, well, what if CDL or if Warzone's becoming this huge thing, especially, I mean, yeah, you have like World Series of Warzone. It's on Twitch, where a lot of CDL pros wish they could be, right? It's on like, it's a huge deal. You have every influencer, every big streamer playing it. It's such a big game. It's free to play. It's got everything we've been wanting competitive COD to have for the longest time. A free to play, out of the box, sick game that attracts viewership, right? And he was talking about like, how long until people, these pro players, end up making the switch. And I'm not sure if burnout maybe it does attribute to that a little bit because it's been a lot of the same kind of like, hey, we always use like these three types of guns and the maps. I mean, at this point, they're just remakes, which by the way, I am all for. I think the remade maps are bad. Like, give me standoff, give me raid, give me plaza, give me Yemen. I don't care if they're 8 years old. I think they're great. But like it is crazy to see, there might be a big shift coming up here soon. But with that being said, I do think Call of Duty League has a bright future. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't be working for a Call of Duty League team if I didn't believe in what the heck's going on here. But I'm wondering, how that's going to balance out because I do see, in the off season, I bet a lot of pros are going to grind the crap out of Warzone, grind the crap out of the streams. Like, let's go, boys! I'm so excited! It's content season, baby. But what does that mean for next year? I mean, yeah, you have Scump talking about I need to see the next trailer before I sign my next contract. Which, I mean, I don't know his exact day, but his contract is coming up very soon. And oddly enough, I think this might be the first or maybe even second year in Call of Duty history where they have not revealed the new Call of Duty by now. It's almost always revealed by E3. I don't know what's going on. Maybe the pandemic's got everything on a little bit of a different timeline, but anyway, I'm sorry that was such a long rant by me, but I'm so excited to see how it all unfolds, dude. Is like, because there could be some crazy stuff happening with the mixing of Warzone and CDL pros, and it's gonna be nuts.
Yeah, I definitely think there is something to the fact that there are tournaments every single day, and I think that there has to be a way that Activision or the CDL or somehow gets involved. Like if this is gonna get to the next level, I just feel like right now, like if I want to find out when the next big Warzone tournament is, well, first of all, it's like every other day, so I wouldn't have to look very far. But still,
I mean, just real quick to interrupt you there. Sorry, just real quick.
Yeah,
I am so mind blown. I have now 3 Warzone streamers on my team of content creators, right? Me trying to figure out who's playing and what and when it is and who's the organizer and how much is the prize pool and who are your teammates. It is like,
yep.
It could use some structure. Is that the point you're kind of going to make? Is like there's a lot going on?
Yeah, it's so hard to follow. And I feel like at first, like, okay, like there are teams or organizations or whatever, like that are holding huge, massive tournaments. And at the beginning, it was like, all right, I'm definitely tuning in for this. And then now it just kind of got to where there's a different one every 3 days. And now you're like, okay, well, I saw the other 300. So now I'm just going to go ahead. Like, I almost feel like that's similar to what's happening with the CDL this year, too. It's like there's matches Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You get a couple days off Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then it seems like there's matches all the time. I feel like in the past when it was a little bit more exclusive, like, all right, you would have MLG Anaheim, and then you wouldn't see another COD tournament for like 3 or 4 weeks. And then now all of a sudden, okay, I want to see, like, we've had all these storylines happen over the course of the last 2.5, 3 weeks. We've been following these scrims, this stuff on Twitter. Let's see which teams have improved and which haven't. And now, like, we get to see them all the time. I know that this is like a totally off on a different tangent, but it just seems like we're almost oversaturated with like so much Call of Duty all the time. And now it's starting to be so much Warzone all the time. Like, how do you regulate this stuff so that viewers actually want to see it again and actually tune in to every single one of them?
Yeah, honestly, I think that's a really good point. And it kind of made me think of that, like when we were talking about earlier, how the CDL schedule has been pretty aggressive this year. There's a lot of group play going on, and like group play is not really very sexy, but like the points matter. So that keeps, you and I hooked. Like, we're like, oh, this matchup between, LA Thieves and RØKKR is the difference between 6th and 7th. That's a big deal, right? So it all leads to that, which is great. But I definitely agree. There's like, if it's always there, it's always there, right?
Yeah.
There's not as much value. And I understand. I mean, probably it's, going live regularly and making sure you stack up the viewers. Like, I think you probably will get more viewership if you hold a 4-day event 4 times a month versus, every couple weeks you have a bigger event. I would actually be curious to see what the viewership would be like. Would it be that much different if there was a much more rare LAN event? rather than so much group play going on, is that event going to see a massive uptick? And surprisingly, we're kind of in a weird time of year, and a lot of people have been making a big deal of this lately as CDL viewership. But man, I sound like such a grandma being like, I've been watching for 10 years. But always around this time of year, man, the viewership takes a dip. It's summer. The Call of Duty's been out since November or whatever. We've been talking about the 8 teams for champs are established. So I'm not super irked by the viewership of CDL right now. But I will be curious to see, what is the format for next year? What is the format for champs? What makes people want to tune in? I'm super stoked to understand that. And then to your point about the Warzone tournaments, it's hard to not do them. As a person who's helped organize them, they're great, dude. You've got huge influencers that want to take a stab at being the best, obviously, and then earning a bunch of money. And the reason the money's there is because the viewership is there. And the reason the viewership is there is because the game's free to play and it's great and it's awesome and it's fun and fresh. But I do like what you're forecasting right now, or maybe it's even already happening. I'd love to know viewers' opinions in the chat, but is it a little too much that every day there's a 25K whatever? And then, I guess one of the things that is cool is there is a differentiation in format. So you have the World Series of Warzone, which I think is my favorite event now, other than the ones Minnesota Rokkr hosts, of course, is that it's a private match, 150 of the best Warzone streamers and players in the world. You've got your Tim the Tatmans, you got the big names in there. Then you also have cracked players like Blast, Smixy, Almond, the Rokkr Warzone streamers, and others, of course. But that stuff is lit to me. It's a little bit different too, because they only just got the capability to have these huge private matches. But the gameplay's a little, with slower gameplay, it's solution to the problem: $1 million Warzone Champs tournament. See, now you're talking CDL gaming, which is actually, this is where I was kind of going a little bit with it. You have the regularity, you have these a seemingly more official, if it's World Series of Warzone, it's put on by Activision. But then you have all these other tournaments where it's quad 2v2 kill rays, you have trios, you have I don't think we'll ever see solos because that's a snooze fest, but you do have different formats, and I think everyone has a fave that they like to watch. Some people just like watching Tfue drop into pubs and massacre 50 people, which to me I think I would rather watch the intensity between Tfue getting in a gunfight versus Almond and seeing how that goes. That's really more interesting to me. And so what I'm interested now is, because hey, we're talking about lands back for CDL, right? How does CDL maneuver Warzone? Do they just become the little brother who tries to do their own thing, doesn't whatever Warzone? I don't think that's what's going to happen. I don't think that's what's happening. Or do they say, hey, Warzoners, hey, come to our event. We're having a big LAN. Oh, we'll have a Warzone LAN too. How sick would it be if there's a Warzone LAN that is a flank or an accompaniment, or it accompanies the main CDL event? I think that'd be kind of dope. That would be kind of crazy, because that is 150 people playing in one place. I'm not sure how you physically do that. We saw that. You remember that Fortnite event where they were playing outside in a soccer stadium?
Sure do.
That was kind of crazy. I wasn't sure about that. I heard it was hot as shit. The people, the keyboards and the mice were warm as hell. The computers are probably overheating. But hey, we know it's possible, right? It's possible to do that. Is that where this is going? What do you think, Icon? Could you see a Warzone / CDL LAN event far into the future?
This is what I want, okay? I want there to be 16 teams in the CDL. And then when there's a big major, you have a Wednesday, Thursday pool play where the first ranked team is paired with the 16th ranked team. So your seeding still matters. So Thursday and Friday, or Wednesday and Thursday, you play pool play. And then what if a break between pool play and the weekend tournament, there was a Friday 150 player Warzone tournament. So you split up the beginning and the end of MLG Anaheim or CDL Minnesota or whatever you want to call it. And then you have that massive LAN of 150 people in a Warzone tournament. And that way you're taking what's there from the CDL and you're mixing it with Warzone, and now you get viewership from all areas. And then now, once the Warzone thing's over, then you go into the weekend tournament, and whoever were the top 2 from each of the groups from pool play, now those 8 are in the weekend tournament or something like that. I just think it'd be cool to see it all intermingled in one, rather than, okay, this is all CDL stuff, and then now we're going to have one Warzone tournament, and then the next week will be back to CDL. Like, I think it'd be cool if everybody was there at the same spot if we're all going back to LANs.
Right? I mean, you'd have to I mean, I know we're just dreaming and logistically doing this sounds a little bit
right?
like a nightmare. Just that many people in you'd have to accommodate and where these things would happen. Like, you can't fit 150 people the same way you can fit 8 guys and a couple coaches up on the main stage, right? You need the whole esports stadium of Arlington for the competitors to go where the fans are supposed to go, right? So I mean, hey, let's rent out a baseball field. Let's freaking do it, I guess. I don't But yeah, so I do really like that. I know what you're saying is the Warzone players would not be the CDL players. I don't think that that would be possible. Do you? Or you're saying that it would be like Scump is playing on Friday and in the main tournament? Because that's that could get dicey.
I mean, it's a lot. If it's an off day, who knows? Maybe they could play, but does that take away from I think that they could do it, but would it take away from what they're trying to do and their competitive mindset going into the weekend? Yeah, maybe.
And they start practicing Warzone a little bit more, and then they just make the full switch. I do think you'd need dedicated players for both.
Right.
Or I don't know, man. That's kind of a good idea, though. I don't know how you do it logistically, but hey, dude, let's rent out US Bank Stadium. Let's do it big. Let's have 150 people out on the field playing in Warzone on a Friday. I do like first of all, the formatting of your event okay, there's 16 league teams. That's not a thing that's happening to my knowledge whatsoever. And even if it was, I wouldn't say it, but I've not heard this. But just theoretically, 16 teams playing group play, because it's hard to do a 12-team tournament. That's probably a part of why they didn't want to do that for champs this year. And I think the group play on Wednesday, Thursday would be cool. And it would be nice if this event wasn't happening every weekend, so there's a little bit of starvation, for it. I don't know, like I said, if that would influence viewership or not, because I do think the regular viewership and how consistent CDL is streaming is probably a good thing for the growth of the league. But I don't know, man. I would love to see more critical events happening. I think it's all good, baby. So I don't know. I would love to see a Warzone LAN, period. It doesn't even have to be mixed into a CDL event. But if I'm thinking of my dream event that I want to go to, and it's at it's in Minnesota, we do the Armory or the Target Center, or not Target Center, Target Field. What's the other one? I should really know the stadiums here in Minnesota. All I care about is US Bank Stadium, man. Home of the Vikings. Skull, baby. Yeah, we play the Browns in Minnesota this year, right? Or is that in your place?
I think it is in Minnesota.
Let's go. Okay, if you guys don't know, Ikon's from Ohio. I'm from Minnesota. I love the Vikings. See, I love the Vikings. Yeah, where's your Browns helmet, bro? Are you even down?
Listen, this is all gamer stuff, okay?
Right.
Except for Mickey. We don't see him.
There's Kingdom Hearts. Mickey Mouse in Kingdom Hearts, right?
Yeah, see? There you go.
Yeah, he is. That makes sense to me. But no, dude, I don't know. I'm excited at where the future of the CDL is going. I don't want to sound like, I basically said, viewership is tough, and how are they going to format it? It happens too much, and people are going to go play Warzone. I don't want to sound all doom and gloom. I do believe in CDL, and I'm curious to see how this evolves and what ends up being, the wave. So, yeah, I guess looking forward now to NYSL Home Series, which is this weekend. It is July 8th, starts on Thursday. Minnesota Rokkr we play twice. Psych, yep. Never mind. So, looking ahead at these matches, it is a little hard other than those, are there any top 3 or 4, 2 through 4 teams playing each other? It doesn't look like it.
Not really.
There's a lot of just, inner fighting with, I don't know. The match I'm most looking forward to is Toronto versus Rokkr. And then Chicago Optic versus Subliners is going to be pretty crazy. Now that Asim's back, and I guess he's in Texas now, so it's going to be pretty crazy. But yeah, do you want to do some predictions? Do you like doing predictions one day at a time, or do you like doing
Let's do
Like
by day. Yeah, I like that.
by day. Let's do by day. So I go by my day, you go by your day.
Deal.
Let's go. All right, and we'll switch who goes first, so that I don't want you stealing all my answers, so that I catch up to you,
all right,
or that I
gotcha.
can't catch up to you. You know what I mean?
You know what? I'll let you go first on Thursday because these are easier.
Right. Oh, what a gentleman. All right, let's go. Thursday, July 8th, Atlanta Faze going up against London Royal Ravens. That's a 3-0 if I've ever seen one. No offense to London Royal Ravens, but I literally don't know how they started doing better than they ever had this season, and then they made a 2-player roster change. I mean, I'm not a coach. I'm not a general manager. I'm not even a player. Like I said, don't know. Didn't make any sense to me. So it'll be interesting to see like what they look like now, but they did not look good on land either. So I think FaZe has got an easy little dub coming up here. Chicago Optic versus Paris Legion. I know they don't say it like that, and that's not even French, but I just still like saying it like that. I don't know. I'm so in and out on Optic right now. There was all that talk all year of like, back on land, like, we're, kind of felt like they were just biding their time online, and then they were going to really turn up on land, and then that just isn't what happened. Now, to be fair, they did go against a whole freight train in Dallas Empire, but like Optic didn't look like Optic. And so I think this is a match where Optic can come back and look like Optic. Is it a 3-1 or 3-0? What were you going to say? No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to go 3-1 Optic. Nah, psych. I'm going 3-0 Optic. I got 2 3-0s on Thursday. It might be a quick day. What are your thoughts on Thursday? Who you got?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a quick day either way. I was totally going to make the same point that you did with London making their roster move. I mean, they were at a point in time, they knocked us out of the stage 3 major. Like they were playing really well. And then they made those roster moves and they just haven't been the same since. And we'll see what happens. I mean, I think they beat LAG, but other than that, that's the only team that they beat. Yeah, it was 2 0-4 teams. It was their last match of stage 4 and they beat LAG. But I just think where Atlanta's at right now, I couldn't imagine them taking their foot off the gas pedal. So I got a 3-0 here for Atlanta. Optic versus Paris. Now, Paris is a little bit different just because we did see them get a couple wins throughout stage 4. We saw them beat Paris. We saw them beat LA Thieves, but that was when LA Thieves was kind of up in the air all over the place. When they got to the stage 4 major, they lost to Seattle 3-0. I don't know. I don't feel great about Paris. I feel better about Paris with Zaptius coming in. It seems like they are making strides. They are playing better. I feel better about Paris than I do London, but I just don't see them having a chance against Optic. So I'm going to go 3-1 Optic over Paris, which will take us to Friday, and I'll go first on Friday. So these ones might be, well, no, these are pretty easy to pick too. I don't know. First one here, Minnesota versus LAG. I do think that LAG, just for whatever reason, it always seems like they're a team that could sneak up on you and get a victory just because they're veteran laden. They're always going to come out and play pretty consistently, and their best mode is S&D. So if it goes to a map 5, like who knows what would happen in a map 5. But when it comes to respawns, I just don't think that they can hang. I'll be interested to see what happens if Attach is running a Krig and Priest is running an SMG, how that plays into things. But even so, even if this is the first match with different roles being played on the squad, I just feel like the pressure that's applied from Standy and what Major Maniac has brought to the squad since he's been back, I think Minnesota's playing super well right now. So I'll say 3-1 just because LAG again is really good at search, so I could see them taking that map too. But after that, I just don't think they have a chance in the respawns. Then NYSL versus LA Thieves. This is another one that I'm going to go 3-0 NYSL just because from what we've heard, and I don't know if you saw that clip of Abizi, but he was asked, like when he was playing League Player 8s or whatever he was playing, his chat asked him how LA Thieves have been playing, and he said that they've been handling them super easy. So with John coming aboard, maybe they're just at a point in time where they have to get the ball rolling and build on that composure and stuff like that. But right now with the Seam coming back, I think Clayster is going to have those guys ready to go. So I'm going 3-0 NYSL here.
Sheesh, that's crazy. You stole my homework by reading my mind,
Yeah.
Icon. That's crazy. I got Rokkr 3-1 as well. I do think the respawns will be, knock on wood, nice. I mean, this is a, I hate to say, like, a good match for there to be first, right? When you have a role switch or a little bit of like, yeah, I guess an equipment switch with Attach and Priesta coming in. But yeah, man, LAG is just gasping for air. I feel bad for those guys. I do, because I love those guys. Obviously, there's some of those guys on our team last year. I'm a big Billy Mental fan. I want to see him go off, but I don't want to see him go off against my team. At least not in a way that makes them win. So I got Rokkr 3-1, possibly 3-0, but I will say 3-1. I do think it's highly likely that we take all of the respawns. For New York subliners, all right. Now, part of me is like, my head is like, yeah, subliners 3-1. And the other part of me, there's two things happening right now with me. LA Thieves, like, yes, I saw the clip of Abizi saying they are looking rough and just kind of like tongue in cheek, like, oh man, like they're not looking too good, like kind of savage about it, right? Like, you didn't have to go doing all of that. Dude, if I'm Slasher, I mean, I think Slasher already has a fire linners, but same with Ken, same with all those guys, right? They don't want to be the 7th place team in the league. That's not where they see themselves. And they still could be, they still have time to prove themselves this season and ramp into champs the right way. Do I think that it's likely LA Thieves will beat New York Subliners? No. But put the upset siren on. I think this is going to be my upset. Now, part of it, there's two reasons. Number one, I need the upset points. Number two, my legitimate reasons behind this is people have been talking mad shit about LA Thieves for like 3 or 4 weeks now. All the musical chairs with the roster. You got pros saying, oh, they're not looking so good. You got John coming back. We don't know how he looks yet. And I don't know, man. New York Subliners, they had a rough major, obviously. And I do think, I mean, it's their home series. New York is more often hot than not, but sometimes they're not. And if they were to be not, I think LA Thieves could win 3-2, baby. Icon's face says it all, man. So I don't know. Did you hear my mental gymnastics to try to get some upset
I sure did.
there? I had some decent points, so it's not just to try to get the upset points. I do think, like, if there's going to be an upset this weekend, looking at the whole slate here, that's my pick for an upset.
Okay.
I'll go right into Saturday here. Or did you want to call me any names or anything?
Nope. I think this is where I submit my victory here, but
stop.
All right, we'll see.
No, don't say that. Yo, Icon in like a month is gonna have a little belt behind him for making all the right predictions. I hope not. I can catch up, bro. I can catch up. Dude, if they win, I will freak out. Okay, sorry. Saturday, July 10th, Atlanta FaZe versus Paris Legion. I think the same thing that I thought about Paris Legion versus Optic on Thursday. I think FaZe they're FaZe, man. Like, they've shown that even when they don't need to take their foot off the gas at all, they don't. It's going to be bad. I think FaZe 3-0s Paris, maybe 3-1s if they, have too big of a Chipotle order before the match or something. But I think they could 3-0 Paris Legion, and that's what I'm going to predict. Florida Mutineers versus Seattle Surge. Sheesh, I don't know, man. Surge looks so much better on LAN, and I mean, it's kind of a running joke on the show now at this point, but I believe in Surge, man. They're so close all year. They really are. But they just couldn't. They just can't, and they just don't. And now I feel like they're playing so individually that they're not really, like, they're not going to have the teamwork, in my opinion, to take down Florida. Florida's been looking really good. Obviously, you got Big Wake. I mean, yeah, you got Skies. You've got Neptune, who's really was kind of a question mark at the beginning of the year, but he's been playing really well recently. So I'm going to go Florida Meteors 3-1ing Seattle Surge. I do think there's a lot of discrepancies this weekend between where these teams are at. A lot of these games don't think are going to be close, except for LA Thieves taking out Subliners, maybe allegedly. Dallas Empire versus LAG. Man, Gorilla's got a rough weekend in playing Rokkr and Dallas Empire. That whole group, though, is insane. So there's no easy matches, I don't really think, in our group. But yeah, I think Empire, they're riding high, right? It was so weird to watch them this season, go from being second place. They win their first, match of a certain, of a stage with Hook. and then they drop him or they bench him or whatever, and then they give him to LA Thieves, and they just went from second to fourth. But then LAN happens, and Crim Six's like robot arms start freaking out. He shakes it out, and they go off. They take FaZe to a best of 9, like 9 map series. Insane. I think that puts a ton of wind in their sails, and I think they're gonna smash the Gorillas 3-0. Nah, 3-1. Nah, 3-0. Nah, 3-1. Sorry. My predictions are all over the place. 3-1 Dallas Empire. And those are my Saturday picks. Who do you got?
Okay. Yeah, man, it's tough. I look at these, and every one of these, like, I don't even really have to think about. Like, it seems maybe not until you get to Sunday, but all these other matches, like Atlanta versus Paris, I think the only thing I'm going to go 3-1 here, Atlanta, just because I feel like both Thursday and Saturday's match for Atlanta is a chance for them to work on like different maps that they might not have the most stellar records on. So maybe they try out a different search or a different control or something. They're still going to win the match, but maybe they could drop a map. So I'll go 3-1 Atlanta against Paris, which brings me to Florida versus Seattle. I will say if this match was on LAN, I would probably pick Seattle. I feel like when it comes to Florida, they just did not play super well at that last LAN. They got beat by New York when New York had a fill-in. So I don't know. I wish that these were on LAN, but since it's online and you have to try to contend with Skies and Awakening, and we all have heard the story 1,000 times this year, I just feel like online it's a different story. So I'll go 3-2. I think they clutch up in the S&D, but had it been on LAN, I would have went with Seattle, but since it's not, 3-2 Florida. And then Dallas versus LAG. Dallas is another one of those, like all the points that you mentioned. I felt like Dallas was a top 4 team, but in the top 4, they were probably number 4. I felt like Toronto and NYSL had a considerable edge on them. And then they make the move for Vivid. Even on this podcast, when that happened, we talked about how, okay, this could end up working perfectly for Dallas. When you throw Vivid alongside Shotzi and you move Illy back to a flex and AR, now all of a sudden those roles, it's just like the puzzle pieces come together and it makes sense. And that's exactly what we saw out of the last stage. So right now, I might say that Dallas might even be the second best squad in the CDL. And going up against us at LAG, I don't know if they stand a chance in any, even though they are a good search team. I just feel like Dallas is on a roll right now. And this is the perfect time for it to happen when we're now towards the end of the season and champs is upon us. I'll go 3-0 here from Dallas over LAG, which brings us to Sunday. And these are a little bit more difficult to
This is
pick.
dicey on Sunday, man.
Yeah, for sure. Like even LA Thieves versus London, like at first glance, you would probably pick LA Thieves, but we've just been hearing recently how poor LA Thieves has been playing. Would this be considered an upset, London over LA Thieves?
I think so.
7 versus 11. All right, you know what? I'm going to go London.
I think so. London's been having a tough time.
All right, I'm going London here. I don't know why. If I would just pick like the team that's probably favored to win, that would probably be enough. But you know what? I'm going to go for it. So London, even though they've only beaten LAG throughout the last stage, I'm going to pick them here. I just feel like when it comes to their flex and Paul X and their min AR and Shawnee, I feel like those two, the backbone of their squad, they always basically play well, match in and match out. And we'll see what happens here with John and Draza. Draza is out of position. John is coming back after not playing for a while. So could take them more than just a week or two to get back into the swing of things. So I'm going to go London here. I'll say 3-2. They'll clutch up in the map 5 S&D. Toronto versus Minnesota. This is tough. You look at this one and you start looking at like what Toronto has done lately. If you look at their stage 4, they basically lost in the major to Atlanta to drop them down to the losers bracket. And then they lost to Dallas, the 2 hottest squads in that stage. Before that, they basically beat everybody in group play other than Florida, that first match against Florida. So you might say, well, Toronto has lost their last 2 matches, but their last 2 matches was against FaZe and Dallas. But you could also say the same thing about Minnesota. Like, how have we been playing as of late? we've beat everybody in our last like 6 or 7 matches except for FaZe and Optic. So when it comes to like Paris, Seattle, LA Thieves, NYSL, we've beaten everybody except for those 2 squads that are at the top. So I think these 2 teams are super tight. I think the role change might be what gets us here, just maybe not feeling 1,000% comfortable in every scenario. Whereas when you have Cammy and Insight, 2 of the best ARs, and obviously they're feeling super comfortable with where they're at and how they're playing and what CleanX can do. I always love in this matchup watching what happens between Standy and CleanX, just because they're both such electric players and they meet in areas of the map. And a lot of times whoever ends up winning that matchup ends up taking that map. So this is a fascinating matchup for me, but I think the role swap, if it does end up happening, could give Toronto just a slight edge, but I do think it'll go to that S&D. And if it goes to S&D Miami, I'm picking us. But if it's any other map, I'm going Toronto. So I'm going to say 3-2 Toronto here in this matchup. But that's fine, because if you're Minnesota, you just have to beat the 3 squads that are under you. Beat LAG, Seattle, Florida. You're going to be in the winner's bracket for stage 5. So even though this could be a potential loss, it's not one that you're really going to be upset about. And then the last match here on Sunday, Chicago versus New York. Yikes. I mean, like, do you just flip a coin here? I mean,
yeah, you do.
Both of these squads are super close. I think New York, with Asim coming back, I think that they're probably going to be a bit better. They will have that tune-up match on Friday against LA Thieves. Last time we saw Chicago, I think a lot of people were expecting a bit more out of Optic. And then both of those series against Dallas, they just didn't seem like they were competitive in either of those, really. So at this point in time, even though Asim is just coming back, I think that New York is going to be a bit better, especially in S&D. I could see the hard points. I could see the control being pretty close, even though with Hydra and Asim back in the hard points, I don't see how Chicago wins those either. I might have just picked myself out of a 3-2. I'm going to go 3-1 here, New York. I just maybe Optic can win the control. I don't see him winning the S&D or the hard points. So 3-1 NYSL.
Nice, man. You had such sound reasoning for everything, too. You got me, like, double thinking what I would do. Yeah, triple checking in my mind, like, what do I think? I do think, man, I mean, if I'm saying LA Thieves can beat New York Subliners, I gotta say that they're gonna beat London Royal Ravens. So I think LA Thieves, you know, we'll see how John looks. I do think Draza, I think, could be talented enough to maneuver his roles and still be super effective. London Royal Ravens, I don't know if I can say the same for them. We'll have to see how it goes, but I do think LA Thieves will win this one 3-1. I'll be excited to see kind of how it goes. I mean, a lot of this, like, there's some uneven matches, I think, going on this weekend, but I do think Sunday is the most balanced day of all. And this is really your benchmark days where you see how you fare. So I do think, gosh, I can't, it's probably bad that I can't remember because I watch literally every match religiously, but I can't remember the last time RØKKR played Toronto. I know we lost to them. Actually, was that the Heartbreaker Garrison Control, or did we play them more recently than then?
That sounds familiar. It was back in group play of stage 3 was the last time we played them. So
yep, and it was a big indicator of seeding or winner versus losers for a big tournament. So, like, yeah, it's the last time we played them, they punched us in the mouth real good. It was winnable though, baby. And to your point, you know, RØKKR's beat everybody but Optic and
Atlanta.
FaZe. Atlanta, yeah. So I think, you know, going up against Toronto, I mean, you know me, I never pick against RØKKR. It's always 3-2 if I think it's going to be really bad or close. But I do genuinely believe that RØKKR could take Toronto on. I think what you mentioned about the ARs of the squad, I mean, you have Cammy and Inside, I think the best AR duo in the whole league this year. Freaky, scary. And we've had a recent shakeup, 2 recent shakeups now at AR. You had MiDNiTE coming back. Now you got Priesthood joining, or going to the sub, and then Attached joining him on the air. So it'll be interesting to see. But maybe we got to equal this out, baby. Maybe Standy and Priesta play so well that it somehow eliminates
Possible.
The ARs of Toronto Ultra. You can't clip this, Shannon, and put it on Twitter. I don't know if that's a sound argument or not, but no, you can. You can. Yeah, I got Rokkr 3-2 over Ultra, and then going for Optic versus Subliners. Man, I think Optic's pissed. I feel like Scub's got a little bit of chip on his shoulder. You see him in content talking here on his stream, I think, talking about people are giving him a hard time for playing bad. And like I think it does get to him, but it maybe gets to him in the sense that like it now motivates him even more, even though he shouldn't have to. But like I think he's been playing really well this year, and especially, he's been playing really well for like 11 years now. He's professional. Yep. Like he's a goat. So like I don't think he needs that extra push, but I do think Optic's poor performance on LAN recently has not left them being able to sleep very well at night, right? Like they're going to come out with the fire. You got New York Subliners who had that weird shift, and I don't know, man. I don't know how I can, with a straight face right now, say that Subliners will, or predict that Subliners will lose on Friday and Sunday. It just seems so improbable, but I do think Optic can take this 3-2. So I think, all of these matches, especially on Sunday, these are benchmark matches. This is where you find out who's really better than who and where these teams are at. So I'm stoked on the schedule though, dude. This is, I'm still like, we talk about, there's so many matches right now. I still watch all the matches. I love putting them on. And obviously on Friday and Sunday, we'll be turning up on the co-stream this week with you guys.
Yes.
So make sure to sub to the Rokkr YouTube. But man, that's gonna, I don't have any other topics unless, did you have anything last minute you wanted to speak about before we go or bring up?
Nope, that was it.
GG's in the chat, man. Dude, GG's. Honestly, great discussion. I think we talked about everything that's current, especially in a time where like things are so slow. It's never a slow time in the COD community, baby. Maybe like in the fall it'll get a little slow and we might need to like hiatus this till next season. But shoot, man, there's always something going on. There's always something good to talk about. So appreciate you joining me, Icon. I appreciate you for listening and or watching. If you're watching on YouTube, what's up? Hey, if you're listening on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts, appreciate you for listening. And that's about it, man. We'll see you guys. Actually, let me look at when we play. When do we play? We play on Thursday. No. Can you put the schedule back up, producer Shannon? My bad. The next time that Rokkr plays, Friday at
2 Central.
Friday at 2 Central on July 9th, Rokkr plays LAG. And then on Sunday, Toronto Ultra versus Minnesota Rokkr at 3:30 Central on Sunday. So that's when we play, baby. We'll see you guys here for the co-stream. And thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you then.